Welcome to the Pride of Detroit PODcast, prideofdetroit.com, Pride of Detroit on Twitter, Pride of Detroit on Facebook. You know where to find us. You know where to get us. You know where we're at. You can come catch these hands at any time, anywhere, open 24/7 like Jack in the Box. I'm Chris Perfett, the adequate host at Chris Perfett on Twitter, as we come to you live on twitch.tv/Pride of Detroit. You can catch us now on Sundays. I think we're going to head up Sundays moving forward into the future. To get ourselves primed and ready for football season, because I saw on TV this past week an honest to goodness football game. Now, maybe in the Hall of Fame game, but it counts. You can't deny that. You can't deny that. Jeremy Reisman, fearless leader at Detroit on Lion, my man. Did I introduce myself first off? I completely forgot. I did. Yes. Jeremy, I see you shaking your head, but you are the glutton for training camp. So do not talk to me about fake football. Wait, is Amir Abdullah? Is he with the Raiders now? Oh, wonderful. I just know that Trevor Lawrence took exactly 0 snaps, and I've heard basically that. Well, I mean, you might have a thing. I guess guys are moving towards joint practices to play their actual quarterbacks, because that's where you can control the whistle versus a preseason game.
By the way, we're off to another stunning start, because I've once again muted myself on stream. But you guys can hear me in podcast.
Stream? Okay.
You can hear me in podcast.
Fantastic.
We're gonna get some upset YouTubers, but
is Zazu barking his ass off?
No, I don't know what happened there. I didn't mean to, but hey, everyone can hear me now. Hi. I said Amir Abdullah did a Street Fighter celebration, if you missed it.
Yeah. The man who doesn't mute himself because he always has something to say, Ryan Matthews. At Ryan_POD. How's it going, buddy?
I wish I could say that I was doing as well as the guy who put $55,000 on the Raiders to cover in that Hall of Fame game.
Oh, no.
They're probably doing pretty well.
I have heard, I know where Jeremy's going to take on this. I have heard from some of my Vegas guys that people think it's bad business to bet on preseason games, but if you know which way a certain coach is going to go, like you can stand to if you know the teams well enough, you can stand to make some good money on taking advantage of preseason lines.
No. To everyone listening, absolutely not. Do not do it.
Even when I saw that wager had been placed, I even said that person needed help. Like, that's why that phone number exists.
1-800-GAMBLER?
Yes.
Or whatever it is. Yeah. Well, we're not here to talk about the gambling. We're here to talk about the Detroit Lions. In a stunning development, we are here to talk about the Detroit Lions. And we've got another week. This time the pads are on. We've had the scrimmage game at Ford Field. We've had a couple of injury scares. We're going to recap everything that's happened in the past week and get you ready for Hard Knocks, which is coming out this week. Yes, Tuesday, 10 p.m. Eastern. And guess what? We're going to have a post show, an after show on Twitch, twitch.tv/Pride of Detroit. Join us on there, 11 p.m. Eastern. We know it's late. We hope you will join us. We are going to do Talkin' Knocks, or whatever the Chad Hardwick title would be. And the podcast will be on your feed bright and early for Tuesday mornings. So in case you don't catch it live, or you don't catch the HBO Max before we are live on Twitch, you can watch it and then listen to us in a podcast format. How effing convenient is that?
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
On demand in both after show and real show. The after show is the more important one.
Sure. Yeah, just don't watch it and we'll recap it for you.
We'll tell you exactly what happened. Blow for blow. It'll be like you just watched the real thing.
All right.
We'll tell you how to think.
Yes. What's that?
We'll tell you how to think.
Yes, that's right.
About something you haven't seen.
That's what we do on this podcast. That is our ideal thing. It's like someone who can't.
Most of you didn't go to training camp. I'm going to tell you how to feel about training camp.
Yeah, Jeremy as the smug guy being like, I've been at training camp.
I've been at every day. I've seen every snap.
From the ivory tower of grit comes Jeremy Reisman to deliver reports, which is where we are going right now as we look at the big storylines from he calls it week 1 on the rundown, which again, Jeremy's going to poo-poo on preceded games, but he is labeling week 1 and week 2 for training camp here.
Yes.
Where do you want to start on the offense, Jeremy? Because we've got every position on here. We're not going to get to all of them, but like, what do you think if I just single out the offense here? What do you think is the biggest thing is on your mind? Wide receivers?
Wide receiver.
Obviously that's the biggest fight, except for maybe tight end, I think is quietly becoming a very important, interesting battle, but wide receivers, it's the position the Lions invested the most in. Let's talk about what you're seeing with the wide receivers right now.
Yeah, I'm extremely promised by the play of the wide receivers. Obviously, everyone by now I'm sure has seen that DJ Chark just balled out completely at the scrimmage, and that's super exciting. We were kind of waiting for him to break out a little bit, and I know there had been some that maybe were concerned about his ankle not being fully up to speed and ready to go, but really all of camp he's been good. Saturday he was great. And it was contested catches. Like, he talked a lot about, his ball tracking, the way he can catch a ball, he can see a ball despite being in decent coverage. And I think that's maybe one of the more promising things about the whole thing, is because we've been talking all camp about how this deep ball has been there, and Chark and Reynolds have been really good at making big plays, where we saw almost none of it last year. And understandably, there's been another side of fans that are like, okay, but what does this say about our secondary? And I'm not saying the secondary has been great, but I'm saying in a lot of these cases, it's not like broken coverage like we saw last year. It's not guys with 5-step leads on the other guys. These guys are just making some contested catches and really adjusting to the ball well on the fly. And so it's kind of a win-win situation. But again, obviously you still want your guys to make plays on defense. And sure, they're not doing that as much as you want, but man, I have to say I'm pretty promised by the way, Amon-Ra made a couple plays during the scrimmage as well, and I think Reynolds has been, when Campbell said, I think it was a week or two ago, buy stock on Josh Reynolds, like he could have a really, really good season. At first I kind of rolled my eyes at it, but the more I watch him, man, the more I'm like, this guy might be a legit number 2, like legit number 2, and the exciting part is he's going to be the number 3 when J-Mo comes back in a couple months, so I'm feeling really, really good about the performances of the wide receivers so far, and that's despite the injury, which we'll get to in a little bit.
I guess my follow-up question, though, I've been really intrigued. Of course, the Lions, especially, they had, if I can recall what day it was, they had the super long practice.
Yeah.
Was that
Wednesday.
Thursday?
I think it was Wednesday. No, okay. I think it was either Tuesday
or Wednesday.
It was Thursday.
It was Thursday's practice.
Okay, sure.
Calendars are hard.
That's right.
It was Thursday's practice. Wednesday was a short one. They didn't have pads on. They took the day off. And then Thursday, I think, was the long practice that they had. Because I was trying to make it to Wednesday and Thursday and whatever. Yeah. Regardless, tons of highlights even from Thursday's practice with DJ Chark just going off. And I guess the question that I have for you, Jeremy, is, Ben Johnson said something along the lines of, DJ Chark, talking to him about what he wants him to do as a wide receiver, and Chark saying, like, they didn't ask me to do this stuff in Jacksonville.
Right.
What is that kind of stuff that DJ Chark is doing in Detroit now that it seems, just he wasn't asked to do down in Jacksonville?
It's a little bit of everything, right? They've said they want all of their wide receivers to be able to play all of the positions. So sometimes you're in the slot, sometimes you're at the X, sometimes you're at the Y, sometimes you're at the Z, sometimes you're running short routes, sometimes you're running deep routes. And I don't know if right now the plan is for that to continue into the regular season. I think part of it is just trying to figure out what you're good at, what you're best at, what your best fit in is in this offense, and what you can do best. And so I think part of it is that they're just trying him everywhere. They're just doing things everywhere just to know where he fits best. But I also think he's going to be running more a bigger route tree than he did in Jacksonville. And in fact, I think that was one of the things he said when he signed here is like, they told me, like, we want you everywhere. And that was something that was intriguing to him because he felt like Jacksonville used him in a very minimalist kind of way where it's just like, you're the deep ball guy because you can run fast. Well, the Lions know that you can run fast, and that can be good on bubble screens. That can be good on regular screens. That can be good on, 5-yard outs, things like that. And so I do think you're going to see more of a route tree from him this year. But I think at some point they're kind of going to hone in on his role a little bit, and that seems like he's probably just going to be the X receiver most of the time.
And then my other question is with Quintez Cephas's injury.
Yeah.
Is there any concern or any worry that has him fall a leg behind in terms of? I wouldn't consider. I wouldn't for whatever reason I wouldn't consider him on the quote unquote roster bubble. But like, I mean, even just like giving somebody an inch,
Sure.
you know what I mean? Like Trinity Benson.
It's possible. The injury to me is really interesting because it looked like, he wasn't putting any weight on that when it first happened. It looked like, a potential knee injury that's out for the year. And Dan Campbell comes on the mic the next day and says, actually, it looks like he's going to be okay. I don't know if okay means ready to start the season okay, though. Like, I'm not entirely sure we're there. He hasn't really done much of anything. He's been at practice, but really not moving that much. He doesn't seem to be walking with a limp or anything like that. And Campbell also said it wasn't a knee injury, which I think is probably the most promising thing we've heard so far. But I just don't know if that means he's going to be ready right away. And with the IR rules changing to only 4 weeks, like, I think there's a chance, he has to make the initial roster, and then you could immediately put him on IR, and then he misses the first 4 weeks. I think that's a potential with him, which could open up a roster spot. I personally think there's already going to be enough room for Benson and Cephas, but this might open the road for maybe an extra one if obviously they can't make the initial roster unless they want to carry 7.
It's just rough for Cephas just because like this would be the second year starting with an injury too. Like, and that's part of the calculus that they got to make on it.
It's been kind of the story of his young career because we keep seeing the flashes and then like it shuts down, and he's having a good camp too. And so I hope maybe my intuition is wrong here that maybe we see him in a couple weeks. But I do think it's got the potential to open up a roster spot for sure. I do think so.
Well, I was curious about this because I know the Lions signed Maurice Alexander, played with Philadelphia in the USFL.
Yeah.
I think what he do in there, he had like 20 receptions, 234 yards. So that's an average of like 11.7 per reception. He had come out of FIU in 2019, hadn't really got much of a sniff. So Lions are dipping into the into the spring ball minor league well that is slowly trying to produce fruit. I know that the USFL has had some people being picked up, just like people were picked up from the AAF and from the XFL as well.
Sure.
So, but I mean, you talk about Cephas's injury there, and I know there's an embarrassment of like who could be wide receiver 7, but I mean, if they pick up Maurice Alexander or giving him a fair look in preseason, like something to keep an eye on because he's had real football experience. I know that it's up against USFL caliber defenses, but also with a USFL caliber quarterback throwing to him.
Sure. And if I'm being completely honest, like he looked fine. Like he looked like an NFL wide receiver. He looked like a guy capable of being a backup, running good routes, and he also was a return specialist in the USFL. So, and
we know how much the Lions love guys who can do special team stuff.
Yeah, and so the guys that if there is that extra spot on the roster that he's battling, it's Khalil Pimpleton, like the guy that everyone seems to love. We saw them all kind of return kicks, and Pimpleton fumbled, and I think it was Josh Johnson muffed a kickoff, and then you see Maurice Alexander go in there, and it's just like effortless catch and run down the field. So maybe it's just he kind of has that rust already off because he played in the USFL, he played spring ball, but I'm not completely counting him out. I think he's already ahead of Josh Johnson for sure. I'm trying to look down the other list of guys that are in kind of that competition. Tom Kennedy is a guy that they like, and maybe has a shot if Quintez Cephas, because he also made a couple big plays in the Ford Field practice.
Well, we know the coaching staff does like Tom Kennedy a lot.
Every single
how much does that
to.
How much does that like translate into we will give you a roster spot, young buck?
Yeah,
kind of. That's ultimately the thing. And I mean, it has winnowed out a little bit. Corey Sutton, UDFA from App State this year, like retired before the season, which is that's not like I people ask me about that now and then. That's not weird. That's not unheard of. Some guys get to the NFL and realize the struggle to make a roster just isn't for them, and just want to get on and do other things, Yep. So, let's see. We got a little bit of time. We can probably talk about tight ends as well, considering that we've got some interesting developments there. I'm just pulling up my notes. Excuse me for 1 second. James Mitchell back to work. And I think I wanted to go here though, but because Dan Campbell had some interesting comments, and obviously Dan Campbell, former NFL tight end himself, was talking about what he's looking for in tight ends. And I think maybe Jeremy, you were looking at this as far as we were talking about like what he's looking for in a tight end. And obviously he wants the hybrid, he wants the blocker, he wants the pass catcher. And I mean that's like, yeah, no duh. But I think the interesting thing is he named Shane Zylstra as his example of a hybrid.
Yeah, that caught me off guard. All of that kind of caught me off guard because it seems like to me he laid out exactly what the roster is going to be. There's going to be 3 tight ends, there's going to be TJ Hawkinson, there's going to be that blocker in the hybrid. And
the blocker's probably Brock Wright. Yeah,
for now it seems like it's Brock
although he
Wright.
says Garrett Griffin is battling it out with him.
Well, yeah, and the other thing with Garrett Griffin is that right now we still have Jason Kabinda on the pup, and we don't really know what that situation is, but I haven't seen him out there at all. I don't see him like close to ready. I don't see him running on the sidelines or anything like that. So if that bleeds in to the regular season, well then suddenly there's another roster spot, and we're talking more about an injury opening a roster spot, and Garrett Griffin might be that guy. But going back to Zylstra, like, I don't know. I guess I don't really see the blocking out of him quite yet. And so to hear him label Zylstra as that hybrid, maybe that lead that Brock Wright has on a guy like Shane Zylstra isn't as big as I thought, and maybe that's kind of the camp battle to keep your eye on, because I do think James Mitchell, I don't know if he's a roster lock, but the fact that now he's finally getting some of the team reps that he missed in the first week of practice means he's really going to be able to make an impact and show why he deserves a roster spot. Obviously, a 5th-round pick, you want to try to keep him because he's got the potential there. But I don't know. It's kind of I think we're finally going to start to see some movement here in the tight end group, and I don't know. I guess I assumed it was pretty much set in stone that it was probably going to be Brock Wright, probably going to be TJ Hawkinson, probably going to be James Mitchell, and we'll leave it there. But I think Shane Zylstra and now Garrett Griffin, because of that injury to commit to, now there's a shot that both those guys could make it.
Yeah, I think the injury to Kabinda isn't a huge issue. I know the Lions would much rather have him in the lineup than not, but I think that definitely does pave the way for somebody like Garrett Griffin, who, like you mentioned, and a lot of your observations from training camp has been repping at that spot that Kabinda would operate in, and obviously some familiarity with, playing with the Saints and while Dan Campbell was there. So I think maybe that might give him the inside track depending on how long Kabinda's going to be out.